Congressman, we can expect a lot, right? This is a big year, a lot of changes.
It's going to be as tough as Brandy playing tennis.
That was very difficult.
Lips, right?
The racket in your face.
Let's hope not.
So yesterday you had a rally basically describing what you think will happen if they repeal, if President-elect Trump, when he becomes president, repeals and replaces Obamacare.
Well, we understand that there's Obamacare has been a political football for 6 years, and I've been a person who said, look, if there's things we need to fix, let's fix it, and I've voted against my own party to make fixes to it. The problem is we haven't really seen what the replacement is. And what we've seen so far isn't encouraging. The Republican budget would blow a $9 trillion, or add $9 trillion to the federal debt, which we always complain about went from 10 to 20. Now they would go to 29. And, that's just irresponsible. So let's hear what the replacement is. I think what's more likely is we're going to have to sit down and figure out how to make more competition, how to drive prices down, how to provide more access for people. It's a lot of work to do, but the politics has got to be over soon, because now we've got to get to work.
Do you know anything about the replacement? Because we saw President-elect's press conference happen, and he didn't give us any outlines or bullet points, just said it's going to be better than Obamacare.
I know there's no plan. Okay, so if you had 6 years to come up with a replacement, you would have come up with it by now. And it's hard work, because there's only 3 ways you can go. You can go for a government plan like single payer, the Bernie Sanders way, which I never supported. You can go back to what we had, which was insurance companies running the show, which meant if you couldn't afford insurance, you wouldn't get insurance. You just go to the emergency room. You might go bankrupt from a serious medical issue. And those are the stories we heard yesterday, people who didn't go bankrupt because, this young lady with a 3-year-old leukemia patient who's her daughter, she couldn't afford to do this without affordable, because we need to provide care. This is actually based on Governor Romney's plan, a wild leftist in Massachusetts. You put everyone into the pool, you provide competition, in theory you drive prices down. We've seen healthcare cost increases slow. But we have a lot more work to do. It's got to be serious work now, and I think this whole notion of repeal Obamacare, now it's coming out of the political shadows, because now that the Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they're really going to have to come up with a plan, and there is none.
Yeah, and he wants to do it day one. And I think what's interesting is that I spoke with Peter Lee last week about Covered California.
Right.
So let's specifically...
A lot of successes in Covered California. So Covered California is a success. It seems to be working, and it seems to be a perfect model for what could happen across the country. But federalizing it, I guess, is the big issue, and that's something that Donald Trump has to look at, and he has said we should give the medical insurance business back to the states and let them compete interstate. How do you feel about that? I think that's great. Anything we can do to, if you have a system that's based on competition, you want more competition. And like I said, Carlos, I want you to know, I'm someone who said, I will fix it. Give me some ideas. But really, the Republicans have held on to so hard to this political idea we're going to repeal it. But now we have to come up with a plan to replace it, because the fiscal impacts of actually repealing it without a replacement, apart from losing coverage for everybody, apart from all that would do to families and businesses across the country, is really dangerous. So look, he won the election, I know. Let's sit down and make a real answer. Now it's time to get to work.
So I want you to clarify for me, so I completely understand what happened in the mechanism the other day when they voted to begin the repeal process. What was that vote? What was that all about?
It's a budget vote. It sort of states, in Congress, the budget is more of a goal about what you're going to implement. But what it did was it repealed a lot of the requirements that people get into insurance. It indicates that would be repealed. It took away a lot of the funding for Obamacare, leaving a huge hole. There's anyone who's independent, non-political, who thinks that this is a fiscally responsible approach.
At the press conference yesterday, you even said, Obamacare, there's a lot of perks, but there's a lot of disadvantages as well. There's things that we have to fix. So, I mean, how do we fix it? You and I were just talking about people who have the insurance who are still paying a lot of money for prescriptions, to go and see different types of doctors. So it hasn't been great across the board for everyone out there. So in those regards, how do you sell it? How do you not make people want to hear or get onto a new plan with the repeal and replace?
Well, we probably have to stop calling it Obamacare. Apparently that's not very popular, although his popularity is at 60% now on the way out, given who's coming in. I've always said, look, we have to, if you have a system based on competition, you have to look at every way to promote more competition, more access for customers, for patients, more ability for you to make a choice and to really understand what you're choosing. That's how you drive costs down. We also have to make sure that everyone's in the pool. We can't have young people who are healthy not paying in, and we don't. It's not realistic to think that you're just going to be able to call, you know, the insurance company, you know, from the ambulance on the way to the hospital, say, now I want insurance. So everyone's got to be in and paying part of the system. That's how you're going to provide a healthy market. But there are lots of ways we could do that. I think some people have some good ideas, but you got to let go of this notion we're going to throw it all away. We have to fix it.
Well, you know, politically, Donald Trump took advantage of what was happening nationally at about the time the election was happening, which was that people's premiums were increasing by 100 to 120%, some places 200%. It was ridiculous, and that really sent the wrong message. If it was the Democrats that were trying to save this, Trump seized on that and said, hey, look how expensive your premiums are. You can't even afford this insurance, and it's called the Affordable Health Care Act. What happened?
As with Mr. Trump, some of that may have been exaggerated. Remember that I think Americans get their health care from their employers. That wasn't the case. That wasn't happening to them. And those huge increases were happening. Arizona had terrible increases. Other places like California, the increases weren't so high. So remember, though, are we going to go back to where we were before, which is, you know, if you have a pre-existing condition, you can't even get insurance. You know, you have lifetime caps on what insurance will pay. You have yearly caps on what insurance will pay. And people going bankrupt because they couldn't afford their medical bills. We can't go back there, all right? That's not what we're going to replace it with.
That's unacceptable.
So let's figure out how to fix this system so that we don't have those big increases. And I'm all in the game. In fact, I'm on a new committee called Energy and Commerce. Healthcare is in the jurisdiction of that committee. You know, it's an honor to be selected. I want to be as constructive as possible. I don't want to play the political games, frankly, that we